Hey everybody, welcome back to Mr. A's Geometry course. Today we're covering section 10.3, which is all about the use of chords in circles. Let's get into it. We'll start off with a reminder of what a chord is. That is a segment that has endpoints that are on the circle. So as we look at this circle O, remember we named circles based off the center point, there's a chord there. Point P and point Q are on the circle. This segment connects them. That means PQ is a chord. We have a little refresher question here. What do you call a chord that goes through the center of a circle? That is called a diameter. We have a few theorems about chords we're going to be learning today that all pertain to the segment measures of the chords themselves. In the same circle or in congruent circles, two minor arcs are going to be congruent to each other if and only if their corresponding chords are also congruent to each other. So there is a new term in there we need to define, which is an arc. An arc is just a portion of the ring of the circle. For example, there's an arc BA right there. There's an arc CD right there. There's an arc BC right there. There's an arc AD right here. Okay, and I made a little error here in this statement. This should say arc BA. So if arc BA is congruent to arc CD, and notice they're marked congruent to each other, they have matching amount of dashes on them, then that means the chords that create those arcs are also congruent to each other, and those chords would be AB and DC would be congruent to each other. What I mean when I say the chords that make them is pretty simple. If you look at chord BA, you can say it cuts off that portion of the ring from the rest of the circle. So that is a corresponding chord for this arc, or vice versa. That's a corresponding arc for that chord. And again, the idea is really simple. If arcs are congruent, then these chords that create them are also congruent to each other, and vice versa. So we would use that fact to answer an example like this. We can solve for the length of xy by knowing that arc WV is congruent to arc YX. Well, if those are congruent to each other, then that means these chords must also be congruent to each other. So that 9x minus 34 has to equal the 4x plus 1. And we can solve for x in this equation. We can get the x's all on the left by subtracting 4x from both sides. That'll give me 5x minus 34 equals 1. I can then add 34 to both sides, and that'll give me 5x equals 35. We can then divide both sides by 5 to get x equals 7. Now to solve for xy, we need to plug that 7 into the 4x plus 1. So xy equals 4 times x, which we know is 7, plus 1. 4 times 7 is 28. 28 plus 1 gives us a measure here of xy of 29 units. Our next theorem is the perpendicular chord bisector theorem, which says if a diameter of a circle is perpendicular to a chord, then the diameter bisects the chord and its arc. So remember, perpendicular things will always meet to form right angles. Remember that to bisect something means to cut it in half. So as we look at this, if we know that EF is a diameter, and it's safe to assume in this figure that it is because it's going through the center. Point A appears to be the center, so we assume it's the center, and the diameter is a chord going through the center. So if EF is a diameter, and we know that EF is perpendicular to BC, so that diameter is perpendicular to this chord, then that chord is bisected. It gets cut in half. So that means that this portion BD would be congruent to this portion DC. So BD would have to then be congruent to DC. We can now use this theorem to solve for the measurements of x and y here. I'm actually going to ignore the x's here because this portion of Unit 10, we're solely going to be focused on segment measures only. Okay, so the idea here is identifying what we're looking at and then understanding the properties. We have a point that appears to be the center of the circle, which means that this is a diameter. Okay, that diameter, we notice, is perpendicular to the chord, which is this segment. And if a diameter is perpendicular to a chord, the fact to remember is that chord is bisected by the diameter. So this portion here is congruent to this portion, In other words, the 2y minus 5 is equal to the y plus 1. And then we could do algebra there to solve for y. I could subtract y from both sides to get the y's to the left. 2y minus 1y leaves me with just a y. So I get y minus 5. On the right, we're left with just a 1. I can then add 5 to both sides here, and I'm going to get y equals 6 for this example. Let's do another one. Again, we need to recognize we have a point that appears to be the center. That means BD is a diameter, CE is a chord, and where they intersect is a right angle. So the diameter is perpendicular to the chord must then be bisected. That 6x plus 1 is representing the length of that chord. 8x minus 5 is representing the length of this chord. Again, those segments of the chords, and again, they have to be congruent because the diameter is perpendicular and bisecting it. So 6x plus 1 has to equal 8x minus 5. In this, we can solve for x. I can subtract 6x from both sides to get all the x's to the right. That'll give me 2x minus 5. I can add 5 to get the 2x alone to both sides. We get 6 equals 2x. Then I can divide both sides by 2 to get x equals 3. And this question is asking me to solve for the length of CE. So I need to plug this in to those expressions there to get my length for CE. So if I do 6 times 3 plus 1, that's for this part here, I get a length of 19. And I should get the same measure here. If I do 8 times 3 minus 5, 8 times 3 is 24, minus 5 also gives me 19. And so CE is just the sum of that 19 and this 19. 19 plus 19 gives me 38 units for segment CE. We're going to briefly talk about the perpendicular converse here for our chords. If one chord of a circle is a perpendicular bisector of another chord, then that chord has to be a diameter. Okay? Now, our figure here is not the best example of this because we can see everything marked clearly and there's point O as the center of the circle. We are essentially going to be using the converse anytime we're asked to determine if a chord is a diameter. Right? For example, here's a circle, here's a segment. I'm not going to put a center point in here, so we don't know that this is a diameter right now. But if I had another chord in the circle and I knew that there was a right angle where those chords met each other, and I knew that this section was congruent to this section, then that would make the chord a diameter. It would make this chord a diameter because it is a perpendicular bisector of another chord. It would have to be a diameter, right? So to fill in the blanks here, we would say if CE is congruent to ED, so that's the bisector part, and AB is perpendicular to CD, that's the perpendicular part, then AB is a diameter. So if any chord is a perpendicular bisector of another chord, then that chord has to be a diameter. The last theorem we have here is the most popular one, or it's the most common one that's used here in 10.3, which is the equidistant chord theorem, which says in the same circle or in congruent circles, two chords are congruent to each other if and only if they are equidistant from the center of the circle. So I can know two chords are the same length if the distance from the chords to the center of the circle is the same length. Okay, so here's an example. If we know that EF right here is congruent to EG, if we knew that was true, then that means those chords are the same distance away from point E. Now, why are there right angles there? This is an important thing to know. If we want to know how far away we are from something, we would measure the distance perpendicular to that something. For example, if I wanted to know how far away I am from the TV right now, I wouldn't measure from like my belly button to the top of the TV, right? I would measure a straight distance there, and that distance would be perpendicular to where I am. So if I want to know how far away this chord is from point E, I would use that measurement, the thing perpendicular, right? I wouldn't measure from point E to like here. It has to be a perpendicular measurement. So if I know those distances are congruent from the chord to the center, Okay, then I would know that chord AB must be congruent to chord DC. Okay, and then the converse of that is also true. If I knew that AB was 10 and DC was 10, in other words, if I knew that AB was congruent to CD, then that means those distances must be congruent to each other. They have to be equidistant from the center, so that would mean that EF is congruent to EG. Okay, let's apply this knowledge. In this figure, there's a bunch of little segments going on here, right? For the blue dotted lines, those might be distracting. We can ignore those for this problem where we're just solving for y. Okay, what we need to recognize is that we have chords here. There's a chord CD. That was a fat highlight. Let me do this one. There's a chord CD. There's a chord AB. And we're given these segments here that are perpendicular and that go to a point that appears to be the center of the circle. So those sevens on these lengths are telling me that these chords are equidistant to the center at point O. And again, the theorem we just learned says if chords are equidistant to the center, then those chords have to be congruent to each other. So if AB is 15 centimeters long, then CD must also be 15 centimeters long, right? Let's see this applied now with a little bit more algebra involved. Okay, almost the same scenario. I have a chord AD, a chord BC, and I know both of them are 5 units away from the center of the circle, point Q. If they are equidistant to the center, then the chords have to be congruent to each other. So the 4x plus 4 from one chord must be equal to the 6x minus 6 from the other chord. We can do algebra from there to solve for x. I like to move my smallest x to get them on the same side, so I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. That'll leave me with a 4 on the left, equal to, I'll have 2 x's now minus 6. I can get the 2x alone now by adding 6 to both sides. I get 10 equals 2x. I can then divide both sides by 2 to get x equals 5, which I shouldn't have circled. That's not the answer to the question, because we're asked how long is AD. So we now need to plug that 5 into the 4x plus 4. So AD equals 4 times x, which we know is 5, plus 4. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 4 gives me 24 for the length of AD. We have one last one to go over here. And this one is just a little bit more tricky because we're using a converse and we're going to be adding some logic here because we're going to find the radius of this circle, this green segment here. So first, we need to recognize we have a chord HG, we know it's 16 units long. We have a chord EF, we know it's 16 units long. If the chords are congruent to each other, they have to be equidistant to the center of the circle. So that means this distance AQ must be congruent to this distance BQ. 4x plus 3 has to equal 7x minus 6. 4x plus 3 must equal 7x minus 6. This will be the first stage of this. I know that's not on the radius, but we need this information first. So let's solve for x. In our algebra, I would subtract 4x from both sides. I would get 3 equals 3x minus 6. I would then add 6 to both sides to get the 3x alone. Get 3x equals 9. I would then divide both sides by 3 to get x equals 3. Okay, why does this matter? Because I can now use that 3 to find the length of AQ. Okay, so 4 times my x of 3 plus 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 3 gives me 15. So I know the length of AQ here is 15. Okay, now let's think a little bit about another theorem that we learned here, because it's going to be important. We learned that any diameter that's perpendicular to a chord is going to cut the chord in half. Follow the logic here. If AQ is perpendicular to the chord and Q is the center of the circle, then that means AQ is part of a diameter that is perpendicular to the chord, and therefore that chord must get cut in half by this diameter, by that portion of the diameter AQ. Meaning that AE right here would be 8 units long. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, because that triangle right there is a right triangle. And I can solve for missing sides of right triangles with the Pythagorean theorem if I know two sides like I know here. So all this work breaks us down eventually to a right triangle. I'm going to redraw it. Looks like this. So we know this is 15, this is 8, and we need to solve for the hypotenuse of that right triangle. And that is simply Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. 8 squared is 64, 15 squared is 225. 64 plus 225 is 289. If c squared is 289, then c is equal to the square root of 289. By the way, you could put y's for all these two, it would be the same thing, right? And the square root of 289, I believe, is 17. I don't remember off the top of my head, it sure is 17. So the radius of this circle is 17 units long. Guys, that is like as complex as it can get with using chords, right? We have to know all these theorems about chords. We have to be able to solve for variables using them. We have to be able to get to this level where we're solving for something like the radius of a circle using our theorems. This wraps up our lesson for 10.3. We'll see you in the next one, guys.